Hi there everyone, Lars here, with a follow-up to my Pyrrha Returns theory, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And this theory has been an adventure in and of itself. RWBY has been a show that I have enjoyed ever since getting into it back before Season 4 premiered. It was a great show that at the time gave me a special connection to two of my friends and fellow Harem members, Nathan and Jed. It also led me to form other awesome friendships with more RWBY fans out there. And ever since compiling and pursuing this particular theory, my fondness for the show has grown even more, and I've had the privilege to speak with other awesome fans, YouTubers, Tumblr users, and RWBY fans out there like Marcos Amazing Tacos number 7, or Shadow, and Shadowy Ghost 2. Two different YouTube users right there, High Priest Funeral, and the entire Republic of Ireland. Oh yeah, that's when you know it's been going good. And before I continue with this video, I have to give major props and thanks to Marcos Amazing Tacos number 7 for the encouragement and discussions that he has given me, and Liam over at Tumblr for spotting and compiling information that, in my opinion, seals the deal on this particular theory. And yeah, I will say this right off the bat. Some of the material I'm going to be going over is similar to the same stuff that Phoenix Knight recently presented in his own theory video about Pyrrha possibly returning, but I swear I am not copying him, and neither are my outlooks on this theory as grimdark as his. Rather, my original theory needed an update, and I thought it would be cool to release it on the anniversary of the very first video on this subject. This video's contents will proceed as follows. First, I'll state my theory and lay out all the information that supports it. I will then theorize further on where the story could go after Pyrrha's potential return, if my theory should prove correct in any kind of manner. Finally, I'll explain the writing advice that we can glean on the subject of character resurrections from the setup that we see here in the show RWBY. And I'll give the timestamps right here, because I know different viewers will want to check out different things, and you should totally have the liberty to do so. Okay, let's get to the theory. Plain and simple, Pyrrha is not dead.
Well, it just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Mostly dead is slightly alive. Now, all dead, well, with all dead, there's usually only one thing that you can do. Go through his clothes and look for loose change.
Because her aura, her soul, continues to exist within the body of Cinder Fall. Because this is the situation, I am confident that she will return. I don't believe that she will return as the Pyrrha that we all know and love, meaning not in her original physical form. Instead, she will return as an entity within Cinder's mind, body, and soul. And I think that she will ultimately take over Cinder's body. But before I get to that, and how that might all look, let's follow the trail of breadcrumbs that have led to this point. The clues littered throughout the series that lead me to firmly believe that Best Girl is coming back. First of all, we get the fairy tale of the Man with Two Souls, the book that Blake is reading, which is confirmed later on to be Ozpin and his relationship with each reincarnation he has. Right now, this isn't the same relationship that Pyrrha has with Cinder, but it sets the precedent that it is indeed possible for two souls, for two auras, to exist within the same body. We get a similar example, though not quite the same, with how Pietro brings Penny to life by shaving pieces of his own aura off and mixing it with the programming within Penny. All of which goes to prove that this can indeed happen, that an aura can take on life within another body. But we do have to admit that the outcomes will be different. So let's get into the stuff specifically about Pyrrha. It all begins when Pyrrha is taken below Beacon Academy to assume the powers of the Fall Maiden from the previous Maiden, Amber. This machine that we see here was made using the same technology that was used to create Penny. But Ozpin specifically states that he has no idea what will happen when they use it. This is notable because He is the one who gave the maidens their powers in the first place and established the rules of their power. And I personally love this little line because it then establishes 3 things. Though maybe 4, because I should say one of which is that Ozpin has no idea what's going to happen now. But the 3 things that we should definitely take from this is, 1, Pyrrha's magic is a soft magic system in which all kinds of crazy things can happen, and likely not in the way that you were expecting. 2, it also means that magic and technology can be combined in amazing ways, which harkens back to humanity's potential that it threw away in its chase for immortality. And 3, for the purposes of this theory, it means that everything that we see happening must come under suspicion. In an interview right after RWBY Season 3, Episode 12, Miles Luna said that he and Carrie would not confirm any deaths, saying, quote, "What's on screen is what's on screen." So, what exactly is on screen then? When Ozpin uses the machine on Pyrrha, we see that Amber's aura mixes with her own. According to Winter in Volume 7, this is the natural thing to have happen when the powers pass from one maiden to another. However, in this case, it is artificially forced. The powers quite clearly meld with Pyrrha, but where Phoenix Knight and I would probably disagree is that I believe that Pyrrha's aura already melded with that of Amber's before being claimed by Cinder, as we see when the energy reverses on screen. But maybe that's just splitting hairs. Nevertheless, we then get to see Pyrrha bravely confront Cinder alone, and after an epic fight between magic and semblance, she is finally defeated in a manner that reflects her character's inspiration, Achilles. But what is most noteworthy in this scene is that she asks Cinder, right before she is killed, or quote-unquote killed, if Cinder believes in destiny. Destiny is an interesting subject within the series of RWBY and deserves its own analysis and discussion. But it doesn't appear to be simply a divine or predetermined path that is unavoidable, but rather an ideal that people strive for, seeking their place in the world. Searching for this ideal leads to actions and naturally combines with the consequences of said actions. In short, your destiny is something that you make, both knowingly and unknowingly. As you work towards an ideal version of yourself, strange things begin to happen because there are some powerful mystical undertones to destiny as well within the world of remnants. But I'll get back to that later, as the concept of destiny is important to the narrative reason why Pyrrha will return. So, from Volume 4 to Volume 6, after Pyrrha has seemingly been killed, there are admittedly a fair number of clues, but they only make sense when put into the proper context. First of all, Cinder is clearly not herself when we see her again in Volume 4. True, she's been greatly injured, and I explained in my Grim Arm theory that this is because Cinder had a Grim already inside her during the events of Volume 3. You see here, the thing I want to highlight is that the injuries themselves are not exactly the problem, but her aversion to violence and her wavering in terms of hunger and drive. While we might chalk this up to Cinder tasting a harsh defeat in Volume 3 to a relative nobody like RWBY, we can infer what Cinder has revealed about herself, that she knows what it means to lose and to be down on her luck. So her change in character is confusing when taken just by itself. This is later compounded in Volume 5 when we see the return of that smug, confident Cinder. However, her dress and weapon choice when fighting at Haven are, however, reminiscent of Pyrrha, especially when she uses a spear similar to Pyrrha's. Others might reference how she acts and treats Jaune directly in the fight. Personally, though, I think her attitude here is very Cinder. Condescending Cinder. Throughout Volume 5, Cinder really is back on form and on point, which makes her attitude, once again in Volume 4, seem more like a fluke or a spat of bad writing. But there's another line which is honestly a ridiculous throwaway. unless it has a point for comparison, especially when we see Ozma's first reincarnation. That almost throwaway line that I am referring to here is when Leo gets flustered when Ozpin reveals himself in battle and says that this reincarnation is faster than his previous ones. But he also brings up that Oscar and Ozpin haven't fully merged yet, that they are still two distinct personalities and auras. While this is important for understanding what is happening with Oscar from Volume 6 to Volume 7, it gives us a good indication as to why we haven't seen Pyrrha show up yet. It's still too soon, and Cinder's control over herself is back, and it is strong. We then get to Volume 7. The newest season, right here, has provided all the information necessary for this theory to be updated. We'll look first at the end of the season, where despite Cinder's speech about starving for power and fiercely fighting to steal the Winter Maiden's powers, her grim arm continues to devour her. As I stated in my previous video, the grim arm devours her if Cinder's own anger, her spite, her jealousy, and hunger for power is weaker than that of the Grimms. And so we see that the arm eats away at her, no matter how hungry she is. In that same battle scene, Winter tells Penny plainly that the previous Winter Maiden's power is now in her, which just further cements that Pyrrha's aura is in Cinder's due to the events that we saw at the end of Volume 3. But the real kicker in Volume 7 is that we get confirmation that there are indeed two souls within Cinder. Throughout Ozpin's history and his merger with Oscar, we see that he has a reversed reflection. This is not a simple reflection where the mirrored image on your right hand is your right side, but your right side is now on your left. We see this with Oscar's pocket being switched, and in the previous shot, it was correctly placed. Let me say this right here. Animators are hard workers, but they also use shortcuts. They would not so stupidly redo an entire shirt from whole cloth when they've already done it right the first time. This is no simple animation error, and we get it again with Ozma's haircuts. We get two different reflections as well, where we see Cinder's eye patch clearly on her reflection's right side, when in reality, her eye patch is over her left eye. Once could be a mistake, twice feels deliberate. And then we get this cool shot of Cinder's shadow in the closing credits, where the shadow does not reflect the cape she's wearing, but it clearly depicts someone else. Finally, Volume 7 throws out another line that feels like a throwaway line until put into its proper context. Vine Zeki, one of the Ace Ops who extends his semblance in battle, tells Jaune that he needs to try the same tactic. This one line of advice, one that we don't even see Jaune put into practice, caused me to rethink a critical aspect of how Pyrrha might return. Because Pyrrha's aura is within Cinder's body, and Jaune's semblance is the power to amplify other auras. He has the power to increase Pyrrha's aura, and thereby her presence within Cinder. And once that happens, the same dynamic between Oscar and Ozpin will take place between Cinder and Pyrrha. This is very important because originally I thought that the aura technology would be what was used to cause the switch, but I will show here very soon why this is the better and more organic route to go. Okay, so those are all of the breadcrumbs. A visual cue of Pyrrha's aura mixing with Amber's and being stolen by Cinder, Cinder undergoing a series of notable personal and physical transformations, lore about two souls in one body, reflections and shadows, and finally bits of dialogue that don't line up when taken on their own. Altogether, these clues tell us how Pyrrha will come back from a world-building standpoint, but what they don't tell us is why she will return from a narrative standpoint. This is an important distinction to make, especially when, as Phoenix Knight has shown, many in the RWBY fanbase are not sure Pyrrha should come back, or if she does, it all has to come to a grim, bloody, depressing ending. However, I have a more positive take on the subject, and it all comes back to the theme of destiny. Like I stated previously, destiny is a concept within RWBY that isn't too well explored, much like RWBY's Silver Eyes, despite the massive implications they both hold for the plot. In short, destiny in RWBY is not merely some divine, predetermined outcome, as I stated previously, but a powerful force that moves people to certain choices and key individuals in their lives. Destiny, of which Pyrrha was a firm believer, brought her and Jaune together. The show even shows us this.
Where am I supposed to find another nice, quirky girl to talk to?
She ultimately made the decision to abandon Jaune to take up the mantle of the Fall Maiden and died for it, but not before she unleashed Jaune's massive aura, leading eventually to his healing semblance, training him and sharing her love for him. And since her death, Jaune has worn her armor, melded with his own, and used her training to become a better fighter and team leader. She awoke his powers, which he has used to help RWBY on her quest and to save Weiss, and their connection helped him to decide to see the fight against Salem through to the very bitter end. So you might have been wondering, when will I bring up the red-haired woman? Well, here it is! Meeting this strange person, this red-haired woman, and that is her official designation, who bears a symbol of reincarnation at the foot of a monument to Pyrrha. She has helped Jaune to confront his doubts and find the strength to move on. This scene that has had us scratching our heads for nearly 2 years is a manifestation of destiny. You heard me right. The red-haired woman. We have finally figured it out, or at least I'm confident I have. The red-haired woman is a manifestation of destiny. You see, these two, Jaune and Pyrrha, are fated to meet each other once again, because their story is not yet done. Now, I normally don't count the songs in the series as canon, but the Forever Fall theme is a musical cue and clue. It is a reminder about destiny. Pyrrha and Jaune's actions bring them together, and the mystical forces behind destiny enforce those moments through things like fall leaves in the middle of the snow, and a chance encounter with a mysterious woman who is very much real, and those flowers that are there at the statue's feet, those are real too. Destiny is real and tangible. But still, how will this all play out? I believe that Jaune is going to accidentally catch Cinder in his extended semblance bubble. A good opportunity for that is in the upcoming battle for Atlas, but we'll just have to wait and see. I originally thought that the aura technology would be key in bringing Pyrrha back, but the healing semblance fits within the parameters of destiny, the natural consequences of Pyrrha's, Jaune's, and even Cinder's actions. And with Cinder clearly weakened by the grim arm and having another soul in her, awakening and amplifying Pyrrha's aura will bring her back. There, I've done it. That is the theory. Whew, done. Wait, what? Not yet? That's right, because I need to tell you what could come next after Pyrrha returns. Again, when I did my theory video on Cinder's grim arm, I said that it is possible for Cinder to become a third-party entity, fighting against both Salem and Team RWBY. Honestly, if Cinder has to contend with another soul within her body, she will become a third-party actor. And why is that, you might ask? Because, for one, Pyrrha would never agree to work with Salem, and two, Cinder will never work with RWBY willingly. And neither soul would want to be together. Plus, they have a grim arm eating their shared body, so they need to do things their own way. It would prompt a very, very interesting relationship, a truce between two polar opposites who would work together for their own salvation. And it would be amazing to see both vie for control and try to sabotage the other and their respective sides. Imagine the heartbreak Jaune and the others would feel if they saw Pyrrha was back and then it suddenly switches to Cinder. And imagine Emerald and Mercury shock when they think that they're interacting with Cinder and it suddenly shifts to Pyrrha. Not even Loki could come up with such a fantastic trick. This also gives the characters of Pyrrha and Cinder a chance to grow and evolve beyond Paragon and relentless evil. It would open up the narrative to more backstory and motivations for these characters, and it would add a level of nuance that the show really needs. Where do I see this then all ending up by the end of the series? Honestly, I believe that Cinder will meet her well-deserved fate and be vanquished. What about Pyrrha? They could go full Wheel of Time and keep Pyrrha in Cinder's body, but staying with Jaune and her friends. I personally subscribe to that notion, and though I am a sucker for happy endings, I do love me some amazing nuance in the mix. But we have to once again admit that RWBY has a very soft magic system, so a complete recovery and restoration for her is possible through technology, magic, the relics, or even the gods themselves intervening. Still, Miles has said that life is not a fairy tale, so I expect a nuanced manner in bringing about this happy ending, because yes, I do believe that though RWBY is based off of the stories of the Brother Grimm, if you actually have read the Grimm fairy tales, they usually tend to end pretty well for the good guys. The bad guys, on the other hand, have to go through some really bad crap. Now, for us writers, what advice can we take away from this very long theory and its subsequent research? First of all, it's totally fine to bring your characters back from the dead. Deaths hold weight, either through their sense of finality in the story or through the events those deaths put into motion, even if resurrection is possible. It is okay to bring back your characters if you consider two elements to your storytelling. First, you need to establish firm rules for any character revivals. How are they done? What are the consequences? What are the clues that you'll plant to this being possible? And if resurrection is out in the open, there are likely costs involved, so you have to know your world building. Secondly, you need to have a narrative justification for the resurrection. Simply saying, "Oh, but I miss this character so much," it's not enough. What themes are you going to play with by resurrecting this character? How will this affect character development, plot progression? These are very important things that you need to know. So yeah, there's my advice and my theory. But like I said in my first video on this subject, it could all be a red herring and they're just pulling our legs and our heartstrings. However, with all the evidence, I am confident in everything that I have said. I am confident that we will see Pyrrha return one more time within the show, and I am very confident that it will be in the form of Cinder Fall. We'll just have to see what happens. I do believe that this next volume is going to culminate in some sort of reveal for us. We have so many clues up until this point that to carry on much longer, as I've said before, would just be to drag it out to the point where, you know what, I don't even want it anymore because you took too much time. You want to give your reveals at the right time, and now kind of feels like it. But please comment down below with your own thoughts and theories. I'd love to know what you think about this potential for Pyrrha to return. What do you think about how I have assembled the clues? Do you see something that I don't? Please give me your comments, give me your theories. I would love to read through them all. And until the next time, feel free to check out our other videos and our podcast episodes. And also go over to our social media, especially our subreddit, for in-depth writing discussions. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.